What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video. Today, I am reacting to a video by a entrepreneur named Gary Vee called Legacy is Greater Than Currency. Let's see what he has to say. I just want to say that Gary Vee is actually a really big inspiration for me because of what he talks about when it comes to making content, right? He is a huge inspiration on what I am doing with this podcast in terms of his message about creating content about what you're passionate about, what matters to you. So there would be no Your Legacy podcast if it wasn't for this guy right here, Gary Vee.
Legacy is greater than currency. Let's get into that statement a little bit more. One of my favorite kinds.
I'm gonna pause it already. You might be like, already? Yes, because I just want to make a note of something, right? Why is that important? This message of legacy is greater than currency. I think it's important to talk about that because in our culture, we have a culture where people talk a lot about currency. They talk a lot about money. They talk a lot about finances, which by all means, get your money, be successful in your careers, great goals to have. Obviously, we need currency to like eat and feed our families and things of that nature and to like provide for ourselves. But what happens, I think, unfortunately, is people spend so much time focusing on careers, success, currency, that they begin to neglect other aspects of life that are just as, if not more important. They start to neglect their own values, right? They don't really think so much about what they believe and the values that drive them. That, to some extent, takes a back seat. And so I think it's important to really take a step back and say, hey, we're going to make sure that we make good money, that we have a good, stable career, that we can achieve those goals and things of that nature. But we also need to take the time to think about, who are we? What do we believe? What would we not be willing to do for money, right? Where do we draw the line and say, these are my values? When are we willing to make sacrifices for other people where our own self-interest takes a back seat and we're willing to do something for other people, right? But I hope you get the idea of what I'm talking about. I think this is an important thing to talk about, especially in, societies like America where currency is like the modern day God in our culture. Everybody chases the currency over everything. People want to get to the bag over everything. And sometimes you need to think about, is that really the most important thing? Is there anything that is more important? And according to this video, there is, and that is legacy, the long-term impact you have on the world beyond what your net worth is, beyond how big your house is, what kind of car you drive, things of that nature, right? Let's go ahead and see how he discusses this.
I'm not even sure if anybody's ever said it before. I'm sure somebody has, but I'm all about it. I haven't heard it much, but I've been rocking it, put on a t-shirt. What do I mean when I say legacy is greater than currency? I always go from self, inside of myself when I communicate and talk to people, and that's why I think I'm able to articulate it, because it's my DNA, right? And so everything I've ever done, when I first got into the liquor store industry with my dad, all I ever wanted to do was be the biggest wine shop in the world. That was the #1 agenda. And so what I talk about, every business decision that I ever made, every one of them was always based on my long-term legacy as being the biggest wine retailer in the world. I like trying to point at that thing. Anyway, and so that was the key. That was my entire thought process. So when I was paying myself nothing, even though the business was exploding, and when I was letting other managers take vacations in lieu of my vacation time, all these decisions, every one of them, you can't skim. Every one of them has to be about your long-term legacy. It can't be about the dollars you're putting in your pocket, or more importantly, taking a Series A or some VC money. What is it going to do? Are they going to make you vest in 5 years? Or are you going to have to wait 5 years to cash out? A lot of people do that because it's this money. They're not monetizing right now. They're not making the cash, right? So you take in this extra flow, they take percentages, you're on the board, what have you. But wait a minute, you're now in theory really locked into this game for 5 years. And in this world, and I'm doing this because I'm trying to show you, in this world where things are changing every minute, where players are changing every minute, if you're a hustler, if you're a very hard worker, and you're putting everything on the line, put it into your own personal brand. Just make rent, pay your bills, and keep building your personal brand, and always think of the big picture, the legacy. who are you going to be viewed at when it's all said and done? You know, so many people are like, my
He's going fast there, and I love it. But I just want to pause there. Like he just said, let's just rewind that back 1 minute.
and keep building your personal brand and always think of the big picture.
Think about the big picture. I think that's very important because on this podcast, we talk about intergenerational impact. Every single day, I believe personally that the best thing that we can do is we don't view the decisions that we're making today just simply from a present moment perspective. I think that it's important to stay present, to be invested in the present moment, but we also need to think about how the present moment is affecting the future, right? How our present day decisions affect the kinds of futures that we're going to build. And I think that's what he's getting at here, which is whenever you make a decision in the present, think about, hey, how does this actually affect my life when it's all said and done? The final product, the legacy that I am leaving for the people who come after me. The way that I will be able to inspire people after me the same way I, in the present moment, have been inspired by the people who came before me, right? It's that intergenerational impact. So when you make these current day, present day decisions, always think to yourself, how does this affect the big picture? Because the big picture is ultimately what matters.
Legacy, who are you going to be viewed at when it's all said and done? You know, so many people are like, my children, my legacy. Absolutely. But where is your personal brand and your business, whatever you're involved in, where is that legacy? Where is that legacy? Where is that legacy? I'm going to say it again. Where is that legacy? And the reason I keep pounding it is because of this. I truthfully believe all the way that if every business decision you make, from hiring a secretary to buying what paper you buy, whether it's like earth friendly, right? To every move you make, if the first question you ask is, how does this affect my legacy, my long-term legacy, when it's all said and done, I guarantee the currency will be there at the end. I'd much rather have 1 million friends right now than $1 million. Not even more than 100.
Not me. I'd rather have $1 million than 1 million friends, honestly. Not because I prioritize money over friendship, but 1 million friends is just too many friends to have. I mean, my God, like imagine staying in touch with that many people. It's actually not even possible. To nerd out a little bit, there was a scientist, specifically an anthropologist named Robin Dunbar, years ago, decades ago, who did research into this. And he found that like humans, our ability, you know, the amount of people that we can actually be friends with before it becomes too much is like around the number of 150. Is it exactly 150? Probably not. It probably varies a bit from person to person, but there's a certain number of people that we can be friends with and that we can know before it becomes just too much to stay in touch with everybody. So I don't want to have 1 million friends. That sounds crazy. No, I think that would be too much. I'd rather have the $1 million and then have like my 10 to 20 close friends that I could have, you know, the close-knit relationships rather than having the quantity of all these different relationships. So it's probably an area where I would disagree with them there.
$100 million. The world is changing. We're more connected, and your legacy, your maneuvering, your decision-making process has to start at your long-term legacy. Big picture always wins. And so if you
and granted, going back to that point of like big picture always wins, and like what I was just joking about right now with the I'd rather have $1 million and $1 million. I guess what he's talking about there isn't so much having like literally 1 million friends, but maybe impacting 1 million people, right? Impacting the lives of millions of people over having $1 million. And that's a interesting thing to ponder over.
take every decision out there that you can make, from who you're going to be surrounded by, who are your friends, right? People are looking for short-term traffic, right? You know, stumble upon this and that, silly things like that, or who your circle of friends are, or any of those kind of decisions, minor decisions. What conferences do you go to? What color is your website? Everything has to start with, how is this going to impact my global legacy? And I guarantee you, when you make legacy decisions instead of quick cash decisions or mid-range cash decisions, you're going to win every time. When you come from that thought process, when you add it to the DNA game that we talked about, being your DNA, when you add it to not lying to yourself, when you break down these and you start putting these pieces in place, you start winning. I'll give you some good examples because I'm going to really give you details. I was buying full-page New York Times ads that were costing me $30,000 when I was paying myself $28,000 a year in business. Why? Because I was investing in my legacy. I wasn't worried about getting a new car when I was 24, or like with all my other friends, even though I knew I was building something bigger. And that's what you need to do. You need to survive and thrive. You need to just keep it going. You know, you got to pay your bills, see your family, do all those things, right? Stay healthy, have a little excess cash just so you can buy a Wii or something to make you happy. But at all times, eye on the prize. Legacy is greater than currency. Your social
Legacy is greater than currency. In this regard, I think that's really important because, you know, you might be evaluating your current situation and let's say you're not really where you want to be. That's okay because life is long, okay? Don't get too wrapped up in what the current situation is. I'm not saying to avoid what the current situation is and to lose yourself in the present moment, but realize that life ultimately, it's a long-term game. There's plenty of life to live. I mean, unfortunately, if someone tragically passes away earlier than expected, sure. But in the most cases, when we are planning to live our lives to the full length, more or less, life is a long game. And don't be disgruntled or just too down on yourself if you're not exactly where you want to be at this current or present moment, right? Give yourself the understanding that it takes time for a lot of people to reach what they want to be, to be where they want to be. And so, you know, like he said, he made certain sacrifices in his own life because of the long term, right? Might not have been thrilled to do that in the present moment, but in the long term, it's going to have that benefit.
Prize. Legacy is greater than currency. Your social equity is far greater than your financial equity. It's not even close. And
think about that. Your social equity is more important than your financial equity. Which to some extent, I mean, I would say that's legit. That's true because humans are social creatures. As humans, we are social creatures. And so, I mean, when you talk about social equity, reputation is huge to humans. Reputation is fundamental. Take someone like P. Diddy, right? Lots of money, but right now his social equity is destroyed, right? Destroyed. And that's why your reputation matters so much because you can build something huge. And if your social equity is tarnished, everything goes with it, right? That's why social equity, I agree with him here. Social equity is of fundamental importance. And legacy is a person's social reputation. It is an intergenerational reputation. So it definitely matters as well.
All these technologies are only making that more obvious. Please, if anything after this video, what is your legacy is going to be the question you need to ask yourself before you make any kind of financial decision. Legacy, my friends, is greater than currency.
Interesting video. And it's basically the gist of what this podcast is more or less all about, right? Legacy matters, okay? Granted, if I meet someone and they're not really invested in their legacy, that's fine. I'm not the kind of person who says you need to invest into your legacy. But for those who actually do care about intergenerational impact, for those who do care about making an impact in the next generation and making sure that they are able to inspire others the same way that they have been inspired across generations, always remember how fundamental it is. Always put it before the currency. Obviously, once again, pay your bills, feed yourself, things of that nature. But make sure that you put what really matters at the top of the pyramid, right? At the top of the hierarchy of your values. And so the message of this video, I wanted to react to it because I think it's right on point with what we talk about here at Your Legacy Podcast. Legacy is greater than currency. Make sure that the decisions you make in your life, they're not all driven by money, but they're driven by something more. And that is your values, the impact that you want to have on the world, and the legacy that you want to leave to make the world a better place than when you showed up, right? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you agree, like the video, comment below what you think. If you think that legacy is greater than currency, leave a comment saying so in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe if you are not subscribed to get more videos, and I will see you all next time. Have a good night.